What's up? Welcome to the Pointman podcast. My name's Zach. This is Luke. We are remote because we are dealing with day 3 of Snowpocalypse, Arkansas, 2024, and we are unable to meet tonight for Pointman, unfortunately. But we are starting this semester. We've been talking Act Like Men for the last month or so. We're not going to stop that tonight just because of a little snow. So we're going to kick our semester off a little bit by talking about the story of our first man. So the first night of our semester will be the man Moses.
Yep.
We'll be walking through the story of Moses and his life, how we can connect with that. And tonight we are going to be talking about Jethro, who is a important figure in the life of Moses and the
Yep.
story of Moses. But before we get into that, I want to remind you to like and subscribe this podcast, because this podcast is dedicated to reaching men and connecting them to the Bible, applying it in their life. And we want you to be a part of that. So make sure you like and subscribe here for all of the episodes that we've already done and all the episodes to come. Hit that little bell thing so you know whenever we are throwing new content up, which is just about every day. We miss a couple of shorts every now and then, but there's a new video for you to check out every week, diving into the Bible, helping men connect to the men of the Bible, helping men connect to the themes of the Bible and learn from it. So we hope you will hang out with us through that. Tonight, though, we're talking Jethro.
Jethro, yeah, trying to get through the snowpocalypse that we're on right now, and I know everybody's kind of snowed in, so they're probably looking for something to watch. Maybe we could be that for them. So a little outlet for
Hey,
guys who are
we're talking
trying to figure
Bible,
out something to do.
so yeah.
Talking Bible, heck yeah. And so I know a lot of people out there are maybe trapped with their family, trapped, trying to get out, a little outlet.
Yes.
So this could be it. This could be the spot to be.
Yeah, no doubt about the time with family is I love my family very much.
Hmm.
I'm ready to be able to get out and go do something though, because I
Yeah,
am ADD and stir crazy as it gets.
yeah.
In fact, we went for a short drive to get some pizza earlier this evening, and I about put my car into my mailbox. So I was trying to mail it to someone sideways right as I was trying to pull into my driveway. So
Yeah,
probably the best move that we don't have Point Man tonight.
yeah, I was actually supposed to start my first day of my new job today, so it's kind of funny. It gets snowed out.
Yeah.
Last time I started my new job 3 years ago for my previous job, I actually got COVID the first day beforehand. So it's like every time I go to start a new job, something crazy happens, or I don't get to go to work on my first day. So maybe tomorrow I get to go tomorrow, I believe. So a little late reporting, but I'm
Yeah,
excited. Should be a good time.
that's cool. Yeah, I always get sick right before a Point Man semester, and I think it's just because we're doing so much and we're working
Mhm.
on so many things that I just don't sleep a whole lot.
Mm.
I didn't this semester, which I was like, "Man, I'm doing all right, like, I'm not
Oh,
sick."
yeah. So your
Well, now
body
I've
knew
got
you weren't starting.
yeah, I've got an extra week to
Yeah.
catch up with my pre-Point Man, like, cough that I get every single semester. But tonight's Jethro. Jethro, if you don't know, I'm just gonna throw it out there. He is the father-in-law to Moses. We see him pop up in a few significant points in the story of Moses, and so we're gonna talk about him tonight. And then next week, whenever we're live with one another, we're gonna be diving into maybe the most, not the most incredible man, Jesus, the most incredible man, but maybe one of the most incredible lives ever
Mhm.
lived on this earth in the story of Moses,
Yep.
which Jethro is an important focal point as part of that.
Yeah, so it talks about if you need to know the story of Jethro, it's in Exodus 2:15 through 3:1, and then Exodus 18:1 through 27, and he's also mentioned in one verse in Judges 1:16. If you're just looking for references about Jethro, and that's what I studied tonight because Jethro is a very good leader. One thing I didn't also know about Jethro, I don't know how you thought and what your Bible, because I know you read the ESV, what it says, but he's also mentioned as the name of Real. Is
Mm,
that also the case in the ESV Bible as well?
I don't recall that. It didn't
Okay.
stand out to me. Yeah.
Yes. So it talks about like Moses. He's married, and his father-in-law is named Raul Real. And I was like, hold on a sec. I thought we were studying Jethro. And then later on, a couple verses later, it's like, oh, Jethro and Raul. He goes by both names, so that's why. And I was like, kind of
Interesting.
thrown off by that. But I thought it was
It's
cool because
not
Moses
abnormal in the Old Testament
to have two different
for
names.
people to have
Yeah.
2 names, yeah.
And then so I thought it was interesting that he is Jethro's father-in-law. And he's also like wealthy man, but he's also a priest, as it talks about in
Mhm.
the very beginning of his life. It says that he is the priest of Midian. So he has a lot of knowledge just going into the being a God servant, like first and foremost, he was a priest, so he was a man who knew the word and had a relationship with God, and so he was the guy that Moses took advice from, which I know we're going to dive into it, but just first and foremost, he was actually a priest and somebody that Moses could get spiritual advice from that was actually from God. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And Jethro, we talked about his knowledge and his understanding, and the fact that Moses was willing to listen to him and ask
Yep.
even for his guidance at times.
Mhm.
Jethro was a family man. It was
Yep.
pretty clear that, and he was the leader, the head of that family, which is incredible when we talk about Moses living this just unimaginable life at times. That Jethro was still someone that he went to for advice and for guidance, and that Jethro had enough confidence, even after Moses is in the presence of God, even after all of these incredible moments in Moses' life, Jethro still has the confidence to go to him and to offer suggestions, which I think just shows that he's in his rightful position as the head of that family, of that household. And even in that, Moses is willing to submit to him, and submit to his, guidance at times for certain things. It's when we see Moses go on the run before the burning bush, it outlines that he goes and he falls under the household of Jethro, and he's tending the flocks of Jethro. It's not his own
Yep.
flocks he's tending
Right.
when he has the burning bush experience. It's also Jethro he goes back to even after the burning bush and God talking directly to Moses, telling Moses what to do. He goes to Jethro and asks for permission
Yep.
before he said, "Hey, please allow me to return to my people in Egypt and to get them out." Which I think is interesting. I think it just lends to that credibility that he has in the life of Moses and his family, that he's still, even after, I mean, and that's pretty early in Moses' story, as we'll talk about next week. But he's a powerful force in that family and that unit.
Yeah, so I think that was another awesome point about. I know we're going to talk about Moses next semester, but
Yeah,
you can't read the story without Jethro without mentioning Moses. So they go very hand in hand
huge
because.
part of it. Yeah,
But so Jethro, godly man. If you look at Exodus chapter 18, verse 10, says, "This is Jethro speaking. Praise the Lord," Jethro said, "for he has rescued you from the Egyptians and from Pharaoh. Yes, he has rescued Israel from the powerful hand of Egypt. I know that the Lord is greater than all other gods, because he had rescued his people from the oppression of the proud Egyptians." So this is where this whatever Moses is talking to Jethro after like all of this other stuff has happened in Moses' life. And so he hears that message coming from Moses and he's like, God is powerful. God is amazing. And I know this. You're strengthening me because of what happened to you. And I think it could be a good example to our lives for other men is if you tell other people, Moses came back and said, hey, God got us through the crazy plagues, all of these things that happened in Egypt where they were trying to kill us. We parted the Red Sea, we came through and all I was trying to lead all these people. God got me through it. And then now he meets with Jethro and he tells him everything that's happened. And he's just strengthened by that. And he's like, I'm more encouraged. I have more faith and more spiritual connection to Jesus and God because of your faith and what the stories that happened from you and y'all coming out of Egypt. So I think that's just a really cool spot where he's like, I heard that from Moses, and now I'm like, the Lord is greater than all other gods because he rescued you from the oppression of the proud Egyptians. So I think that's just a
yeah.
cool verse that really stood out to me.
That's something you've talked about before in the past, though. Of you may be the only gospel that someone sees or
Yep.
someone reads or hears, and
Right.
um, I think that that's a testament to that. That our faith and the way that we live our faith out could be a refreshing moment in the life of
Yep.
someone else. It could be a refreshing point to help someone else to understand and to grow and to come into their faith or to
Yep.
understand and see. And that's part of what this semester is about. Is like, hey, you are a man. You have done these things. No, you didn't live the same life as Moses, probably,
Yep.
but there's aspects of Moses' life that you can connect to and can be strengthened by, that you are living for Christ, that you're living your life in a way that would glorify God. And that's how we can connect to Moses. That's how we connect to these stories. in the Bible and in our humanity and in our manhood and how that all kind of works together. But I think that's a great point.
Yep. And so then right after that, him and all of his Moses' friends, they bring burnt offerings and sacrifices to God, and Aaron and all the elders of Israel come out and join him in sacrificing to God in God's presence. I thought was really cool. Was like he saw those things happen and amazing things that happened in Moses and Aaron's life, and he praised God for it, and he actually burned sacrifices to God to praise Him for all the amazing things that happened. He didn't just say, "Oh, cool, that's great." He actually praised God for that, and
Mhm.
he knew who got them out of Egypt. It was the Lord. So I thought that was cool.
That's cool. Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, Jethro, besides having the coolest name in the Bible, um, he's a great leader and he's a great organizational leader as well.
Yep.
So he clearly leads his family well. He
Yep.
clearly demands respect or garners respect, as we've already kind of mentioned, from his family. But also, he kind of outlines the structure of how
Mm,
management works, and he does it
mm,
inside of Moses's camp, which is pretty cool. So Moses is trying to handle all of
mm.
the issues of the people. He's doing all of the work, all of the like we're talking to everyone, seeing their problems, hearing their problems, and he establishes essentially the eldership, the first eldership we see, and kind of ranks it by like importance and ranks it by uh, issues. So
Mm.
it's the biggest issues still come to Moses. Moses handles the biggest issues for his people. And then he has a team essentially of elders, which a lot of people believe and most believe that all that elders means in this context here in the Old Testament is that they were popular, well known, honorable men of age. So
Old
essentially
guys.
these are old guys who are smart
Yep.
and who are honorable and who
Mhm.
are well known. So that's
Yep.
what these are. This isn't like a special title bestowed upon you with all rights and responsibilities that go with it.
Yep.
Um, Intentionally, it is because you're still handling the problems of the people, but the actual like prerequisite
Mm.
for them becoming elders is just that they've been around long and they've been good people. But they are handling the problems of the masses, and then they are essentially are funneling the problems down to Moses, who is handling the big issues. He's handling the community driving issues. But I think it's interesting when we look at like this is Jethro's idea. Jethro brings this to Moses because Moses can't handle. He sees that he can't continue to handle all of the problems that are going on and handle all of the issues and the questions and everything. But it's interesting that in the Old Testament, in the beginning of the Old Testament, we see this structure of like management lined out, and we see the
Yep.
structure of like organization in not the church as we know it, but in like the original collection of people of faith. And we still see a version of that today
Mm.
being utilized to help, work through the lives of many people
Yep.
inside of the church walls, inside of our groups, and we do it inside of Pointman.
Mm.
We have, a tier system essentially
Mm.
of guys who are helping to invest in the lives of other men. Um, and that really comes from this. It comes from this idea here, way, way, way back with Jethro in the
Yeah,
beginning of
that
the
no, that's
Testament.
really interesting. A couple of things come to mind whenever you say that. Is like when you're talking about the church, you could say like the pastor would be like the Moses, and then you could have like Point Man, Real Women, a smaller version of that, and then community groups would be like the next step down from that, and then individual counseling, one-on-one counseling could be another version of that. I didn't even think about that until you were just mentioning like the church. That's kind of how essentially it functions, and like everything kind of, you know, spiritually wise, you get one-on-one counseling, or you go to a community group where you got 10, 15 people in your community group, or you can go to Point Man Real Women where you got, you know, 70 people. And then, but you also, there's smaller groups into that as well. And then all kind of funnels up to the pastor, which is leading everybody, which is really cool.
Yeah,
Another thing that you mentioned was like Moses is like a manager, and he gets that from Jethro. I thought that was really cool because like he had already been a leader without a doubt. Like he was a leader, but there is a difference between being a manager and being a leader. Like I feel like Moses already got the I'm a leader down, but he needed like, hey, somebody give him advice that's a little bit more like you need to start managing your people a little bit better. And I don't think there's anything wrong with being a manager. Like you need to be a leader, but you also need to manage because if you don't, you're just leading and it's just more chaos. And I'm like you were saying, I really enjoy structure and systems. That's just kind of how my brain works. And so I really, really enjoy Jethro because he's a system man. He's got the
Yeah.
systems down. And so you can kind of see that in the Bible. It talks about he was a priest, so he had already learned this beforehand. I'm sure he was leading a big crowd of people, so he had already got that down. And then
Or
he's
a
sees
crowd of
Moses.
people.
Yes, who knows what the size, but he just says he was the priest of Midian, so like he was running the show probably, and he probably had the same issue that Moses had at a certain point where he was like, "I see you struggling, dude. I went to that same thing, you know." And then he gave that advice to Moses, which is we can kind of take that and say, don't just dismiss the I like the word. That's a good word to say, like the old heads, the people who've been through it. I don't know if that's a
Yeah.
southern or
Nah.
don't don't dismiss the people who have been there and done it before because they probably know what they're talking about. And Moses took that advice to say, I'm going to use that which you used in the past that you probably maybe had gone through that already, and I don't have to struggle through that. I can just learn from my father-in-law Jethro, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, the Bible in multiple places. I can never remember the verse. This is one that I've tried to commit to memory, and just for some reason it evades me. But there's a verse later on, not in Moses' story, but it boils down to, hey, young men, listen to the older men. They have
Mhm.
knowledge, they have things, understand, learn from them, grow through them. But it also says, like, hey, old men, understand that collaboration is necessary. Don't just throw away the ideas of the youth
Yep.
for no apparent reason. I really wish I could remember the verse. Somebody comment it if you know it, what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But I think you see that in play here, where it's like, hey, Moses is running the show. He's younger than Jethro. He's Jethro's son-in-law.
Yep.
But Jethro comes to him and is like, hey, I got this way of doing it. I think it's cool that he also comes and it's not like, hey, you need to fix this. You're gonna run into the ground. Good luck. I don't know how to help you really,
Yeah.
but you need to figure this out.
Mhm.
No, he instead comes to him with the solution,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
they work through that, and they instill this like structure of hierarchy
Yep.
to overcome the being bogged down that Moses has been dealing with up until this point.
Yeah, if like you sometimes you can get that in your advice, so you tell somebody like, "Dude, I'm going through it right now," and they're like, "Man, that sucks.
Yeah,
You should really fix that." And you're like, "Okay, you get any other advice?" Sometimes you want people to just sit there and listen to you, and sometimes you're like, "Dude, I need
yeah,
some advice." And then
but
Jethro's there for that.
you gotta earn that too, though.
Yeah,
Like he's
yeah,
earned that
yeah,
ability to speak into Moses in this point of he's
yeah,
the leader, he's in charge, he's running the
right,
show. He had to earn the ability to say, "Hey, Moses, like, hey, check this out. You
yeah,
might want to fix this, and this is how you should do it."
yeah.
So
So, look,
yeah, so we were reading, or I was reading this book called "Standing with Idiots"
mm,
or "Standing Next to Idiots." I don't remember the exact title, but
yeah,
it's a
something like that.
discussion of the dice
Mm,
system or dice personality profile.
yes,
We took it, and we everybody that we know, I think, took it because
yeah,
I was curious what everybody was, and
yeah,
it breaks it down into 4 categories. It's
mm,
red, which is like your leader, it's your alpha, it's like the we're gonna
firstborn.
charge the wall. We have no tools, no nothing, but we're gonna break it down anyway. We're gonna figure it out along the way. And then you have your yellow, which is kinda like your creative, like
Yep,
your communicator, your artsier person. They want you to, like, recognize them, but they're probably not running with the fire to burn
mm,
down the building, to get
yeah,
in.
yeah.
Uh, but they wanna just kind of take over the conversation and be a part of everything and make sure people know who they are.
Hype
Um,
man. Yeah,
man, yeah, and then you got your blue or your greens, which are like they're not really the best at anything, they're also not really, like, the worst at anything,
mhm,
but they
mhm,
really want everybody to like them. Like, they really want people to know, like, who they don't wanna to do anything to rock the boat, where a
yep,
red is like, "I don't really care what anybody thinks. I'm gonna do it anyway, and we're gonna do it my
yep,
way." And
mhm,
then blue is like, "There is a system, there's step 1 to step 10, we're gonna follow steps 1 to step 10."
yep,
Um, in that. I was red, yellow, like, red, yellow, green was like, couldn't find it, and then blue couldn't
go,
find it because that's not
go,
my
go.
thing.
Yep.
You were blue or no, green, yellow, right?
Green, yellow, yes. Green
Green,
to a
yellow.
fault. I'm green. It's an issue that I've been working on. I know not issue. It's a character trait that I have where I want everybody to like me. Everybody knows that. And if you don't like me, even if I don't like you, I'm like, you better like me a little bit, even if I don't like you. It's just something that I have in me, and it's something that when you're a leader, it's not always the best trait to have, but it's
It
not always
just
the worst. Good.
it just holds
So,
you up. Like,
yeah.
sometimes you just need to
Yes.
be able to, like, go
Yes.
for it.
Hmm.
Um and if ever you always have to worry about what people think of you, sometimes you get stopped
Yes, yeah.
from
I
moving
don't
forward.
really like conflict. I try to avoid conflict, which you try to be a leader of somebody. You have to confront conflict no matter what. It's just got to happen from time to time, and then give constructive feedback. You don't always want people to like me, so I'm always like, it's tough for me sometimes to give constructive feedback. It's like, what if I give them that feedback and then all of a sudden they don't like me? So it's something that I work on, but from time to time,
It's called Surrounded by Idiots.
surrounded
That's
by the
it's
mm,
anyway, if I find I was trying to find the dice quiz real quick. If I find it, we'll put it in the
mm,
comments or in
yeah,
the link. I don't know, we all took it. It's in my messages somewhere.
yeah, it's a
But
good, yeah, it's a good one.
with that, what do you think is at play here? I mean, Moses is interesting.
So you say we're trying to do the dice for Moses and Jethro. Is that what you're
You're
saying?
estimating the dice
Okay,
for
okay,
Moses.
I got
Let's
you.
do it for Moses first. You're estimating the dice test for Moses.
Moses is 100% a red. I think he got to be a leader, right? No, you don't think
He's
so?
got some green in him though,
Green, yeah.
because he says he can't speak well. He doesn't want to go
Mm,
run. I would have originally said yes, red,
mm,
but really he's got some hold up to him. He's not
yeah,
fully in like
mm,
go mode all the time.
right.
So I think there's some
Mm,
definitely some red there, or
mm,
excuse me, some green there.
green. Mm,
Um, Now for Jethro, I definitely think there's some red.
mm,
He's definitely set himself up. He's led his family. He's a
yep.
priest. He's a leader in that community. It's called the disc test, not the dice test. I don't know how I got
Disc,
dice.
disc.
Disc test. But he's got some of that leadership in him, but he's also he creates this system that's
Mm,
very step one, step two, step three. So I definitely think he's got some blue. I don't know what you
very
think on
blue.
that.
Yes, yeah, I think so. I think he's a blue through and through, and then he's also some red because he tells Moses, "Hey, you need to chill out. Like, I don't care. Like, stop what you're doing. You need to fix it." So that's got to be a red quality trait right there,
Yes.
through and through.
Here I found I will put this in the
Mm,
comments. Found it while we're going through this. But yeah, I think it's important, honestly. I don't That's not an aside that we just like did this
mm,
quick disc test on them because I think that understanding like
mm,
what we're talking about two leaders,
yep,
two alphas, but they have two different ways that they're accomplishing this. One is Moses is God's told him to go do something, so it's like, hey, you need to handle this. But he's also got some reservation because he's not totally confident in his ability to do what's been asked. We'll
yep,
talk about that next week in Pointman, but guys can connect with that
yep.
100%, I think.
Um,
Um,
one of the one of the things I did want to point out real quick in verse 19, still in Exodus 18, just some of the advice that he gives Moses is also like he does give him the managerial kind of way that he should be doing, but he also gives him a good leadership quality trait that you should be teaching the younger generation, the next generation. This is what he says. Now listen to me. This is verse 19. Now listen to me, and let me give you a word of advice, and may God be with you. You should continue to be the people's representative before God, bringing their disputes to Him. Teach them God's decrees and give them His instructions. Show them how to conduct their lives. So not only is he saying this is the structure you need, but he also gives them really good advice. Like this is how you need to teach the people who are leading your people. And I think
mhm.
that's really cool because like he's not doing those things for everybody. He's doing those to his leaders. So he's like, lead your leaders because those are the people who are leading the rest of your uh, congregation, the rest of your peoples, basically.
Community,
So,
yeah.
your community, right? So like Fear, teach them God's decrees, give them His instructions, and show them how to conduct their lives, how to be men of character, how to be spiritual leaders of their homes. So I think that was really cool advice. One of the things I learned from Jethro is how to be a good leader, because in my new job I'm going to currently have, hopefully, I am in a leadership role. So that's going to be, I'm going to use some Jethro's advice when I get there.
Yeah. And I think that Jethro's, like, impact on this story and impact why I think he's even in the Bible or why we even know his name is because of that leadership,
Mm,
because he does direct and he does show us an example of, like, submissive leadership even to what he's not the head man in this situation. He's not the one who's in front of God and God's communicating directly with. They didn't hand the tablets to Jethro to hand to Moses, you know?
nope. Hmm.
Um, but he still is confident in his abilities. to lead, but he does it in an appropriate way. Um, and you're military, and so you kind of get that in a degree where I'm sure others don't. Where it's like you have your roles. We were kind of talking about we were walking around the other day playing golf. It's like
Yep.
you're going into a position where you have a rank that's
Yep.
above others, but you're submitted to
Mhm.
someone who's technically the boss of your section. So it's like you
100%.
have, and it's kind of what we're looking at here, where it's we have someone who has rank because he's been this priest, he's been a leader, he is the father of this family, he is the head of that household.
Mhm.
Yet he has a new boss who's
Mhm.
getting his, mission and commandments directly from God. So it's like, all right, well, he's my boss now, but I'm
Yeah.
still a boss. And so here's,
Mhm.
and when we look at like our pillars, where we
Mhm.
say, you're a king, you're a prophet, you're a priest for your household, like you're a king to your domain. Like
Yep.
if you are the pastor of a church, you have a large domain that you are the king of. And king is not that you rule and
Right. Yep.
but you're the one people are looking to for guidance. You rule with dignity and respect. You have professionalism towards your people. You care for them. You're trying to provide for them. Kings build things. We look at all of these aspects, but you're the king of that domain. If you own a business, you have a wider, broader kingdom that you're the king of. But also, if you have none of this and you have a job you go to every day and you come home to your family and rinse, wash, repeat every single day of your life, you're still a king. You're a
Mhm.
king inside of your domain, your household, to your family. The rules are the same for you. Like you rule with dignity and respect. For him, he is under this submitted, like Moses has this kingship, this role that he's playing where he's ruling and caring for all of these people.
Mhm.
And Jethro's a piece of that. Now he has his family that he's the king of, and there's a role that he assumes there. And that's where we as men can connect into this as well. It's like, hey, just because you're not leading in the A tier of whatever your, field is
Yep.
or whatever your mission is, you are a leader in where you're at and
Mhm.
what you can control and what you can have domain over. That is what you are the leader of.
Yeah, 100%. When you talk about military wise, they do the exact same thing that Jethro talks about. Like, they don't just they don't strive from that at all. Like Jethro's points, where he says you have a person who's over 1,000 people, you have a person that's over 100 people, 10 people. Like that's exactly the way the military does it. And it's funny, not funny, but like maybe it just shows you how true the Bible is and how true his advice was because the military still today still does exactly what Jethro says all those years ago in Exodus, one of the first books ever written in the Bible. And
Yep.
that advice is still used today by our current military system. So that's not just Air Force, that's Army does the same way, Navy, Marines, everybody does that. So
Yeah.
that's pretty cool.
And in the real world, like I just said, we do it the same way. We don't even
Yep.
realize we're doing it.
No.
In the church, like if we look at just at Pointman, just at this ministry that puts
Yep.
on the podcast, there is tiers. Like
Yep.
there's a pastor of the church, and then there's a ministry leader, and then there's a team of 6 people who have a team of 30 people
Yep.
who make this thing work so
Mhm.
that we can have 100 people come in
Right.
and have an impacted, moment with God through the Bible to where they can understand their faith, understand how they connect to Jesus as their savior.
Mhm.
But that's done because we have this system. If it
Mhm.
was just the pastor who was running the head of the entire church, then
Mhm.
we would literally never you would never get to talk to him because
Mhm. No.
there's absolutely 0 chance
Yeah.
that anyone has enough time to talk to 100 people a week, let alone 1,000 people a week.
Yeah.
And that's why this tier exists. Now, there
Mhm.
are issues that do need to rise up, and they go from ministry or from team leader to lead team to, ministry leader to pastor. Like those things do escalate, just like we see here.
Yep.
Same in a business. Like there's managers where problems go up and rewards come down. It's just
Yeah.
how it works. But that's a system that's established in this story, and it's established through Jethro going to Moses in his position, and with that developed a connection, authority, and ability to talk into Moses's life.
Yeah. So there was another point that I wanted to make and kind of tell us a little bit of a story right here with like the advice that Moses got from his father Jethro. So it's kind of fitting to kind of to talk about this story with Jethro and the story of us having just terrible weather going on right now.
No doubt.
So whenever me and JC first bought our house, the current house that we live in right now, it wasn't like a complete house. It needed lots of renovations done to it, and we didn't know when we first bought it how much renovations. I don't know. That's probably everybody who buys a house that needs renovations.
Probably so.
You're like, I need to have these couple things done, and that'll be it, and we'll be good to move in. And then you get into it, you rip some walls out, you move some stuff around. You're like, this is going to take a lot more work than I thought. But it's funny that like we go in, we get all this stuff done. The person we buy it from, they actually were renting it out for the last 10 years or something like this. It was just a rent house for 10 years. So you never know what you're going to get with a rent house regardless. And so we move into the house after we had done like a year. All right. Well, so we do like the major stuff for the first like 3 months, finally get into the house, move in, still renovating everything. We renovate for the next like 2.5 years basically. And it's funny because like we were sleeping in certain rooms while we renovated other rooms, right? So we sleep in currently, we were sleeping in Reese's room at the time for like maybe 3 or 4 months while we were renovating, doing stuff in our room and our bathroom. And we come to find out a couple of like months after we came back into our room that the window in that room was not shut. And not only was it not shut, it was not shut for who knows how long before we bought the house. And then 2 years after we had bought the
No.
house. So the window is a weird thing where it has like, you can raise it up just like a normal window and it has a pane up top and a pane up bottom. You can raise the bottom pane, right? But this window is you can also grab the top and you can raise the top one down so you can
Yeah.
clean it or wash it or whatever. And there was like a 3-inch gap on the top of the in that room
Wow.
where we slept for like 3 or 4 months in a room with the windows down. 2 full years that window was open in our house. We had no clue. No
Huh.
idea. No idea. We were in there cleaning it up while we were renovating and looking at the top like, "Is this window open?" It's always
There was
cold in
never
there.
a point where, yeah, like the wind was loud or there was rain coming in or anything where you just
So
noticed?
so what we thought is, like, it probably had, the people before us probably didn't realize either because you could tell they put a whole bunch of, like, caulk around the window and, like, layers of it. We're like, "Why is there so many layers of caulk?" It's a rent house, so we're thinking, like, we don't really think about it, but it's, like, always cold. We're like, "This window just really is terrible in the wintertime, and then it's really hot in the summertime in this room." Just this one room, we're like, "This window is just
Your
terrible."
electric bill's like $500 on your house, and you're like, "What is going on?"
I'm sure after we had it closed, it dropped, like, at least $50 a month just because of the one window.
It's
So,
really hot in Arkansas in the summer, and it's really cold in the wintertime, so
yes, and one of those, months that we slept in there, I'm telling you, it was so cold, and we were in there just, like, shivering with the covers on every night. We had, like, the drapes over it, but still you could tell, like you're looking back on it, you're dumb because you didn't realize this, but, like, it's kinda like the wind
you
was
ever just, like,
blowing it.
stopped and, like, did some examining on the window?
Never just looked at it, peeked up
Yeah.
to the top of it, like, you don't really realize until you're, like, doing a renovation, like, "Oh, snap. Dang window's been open for 2 years of my life." I say that all of that to say is, like, I don't know if this actually correlates. You gotta watch the things that are coming into your life because if you don't and you get bad advice from other people, it's, like, kinda like leaving your window open maybe to your heart where you could get 2 years worth of terrible stuff, and you have no clue until you get somebody who has good advice and says, "Hey, man, maybe you should shut your window to your house," just exactly like Moses. So Moses is trudging and trudging and trudging, and then all of a sudden he gets some advice like, "Hey, man, if you just do this one little trick, your whole life could be better." And I feel like that same thing happened to us where it's like our electric bill is $50 higher, we're freezing cold at night, and we're blazing hot in the summertime, so I just thought that was kind of a cool story. Very fitting to, the temperature outside at the moment.
I think it is. It's funny that you said that because I was just scrolling, Instagram or I don't know, a minute
Mhm.
ago before we hopped on here, and I essentially that a a preacher was talking about just that thing, and I think it's interesting, the conversation of, like, you can see, I have books behind me by psychologists that are deemed to be very smart people, and I've read them, and, like, some of the points, I'm like, "Oh, that is smart." And then other points, I'm like, "That is terrible." Like, the advice given there is
Mhm.
so anti-biblical, it's so, like, outside
Yep.
of we just talked about a psychologist book, actually, but, we get these ideas from these very smart people, And just because they seem smart, they sound like good ideas. In reality, you have to check all things that you do in your life
Right.
through the lens of the Bible. We had a guy comment on a clip that we posted of previous episode, and he was talking about all the books that Christians have to read for their faith, and why there's all these different books that we have to read, while all the other faiths only have one. And what he's missing is the fact there's only one book that we as Christians should be gauging our life on and living our life based on, and that is the Bible.
I know.
We do have a trillion Christian authors. There's a billion Christian books, and they have great intentions a lot of times. I don't think most Christian writers sit down and write, or writers in general sit down and write with malice
Mm.
to harm the people that read the book.
Yeah.
Um, but at times they get off base. They get outside of what the Bible says. They get in their own lane, even as smart as they might be, telling you how to do certain things in your life, and you have to check that.
Mm.
You have to check all those things by what the Bible says. And that's not even to talk about all of the worldly things that we allow in, and the advice we take from worldly spaces, and influencers and communicators and things in other realms.
No, that's good. And
That's looking at believers.
yeah, you could say all the other vices. People are saying, "Man, my room's really cold. You should put some putty around your window." And you're like, "Okay, I'll put putty around my windows. I'll
Right.
layer it up." There's a gaping hole in your life where you need to close it up, but you don't do it. So, but
Yeah,
yeah.
there's a song, by Bringing Me the Horizon. It's
Mm.
my favorite rock band. They're not don't go listen to them. I'm not off I'm not advocating for their viewership. They have a song called Lost,
Mm.
and it's, like, pretty much about his depression. It's about
Mm.
all the things, like, going wrong in his life, and it's like he wants to know the answer to the question of how to fix it all, and it's so frustrating when I hear songs like this, and this one in particular, 'cause I like the band, and they're the best at what they do, but they don't have faith. They're not Christians. They, in fact, would probably be the opposite.
Mm.
Um, but he has this song where it's like he's clearly seeking something,
Mm.
and every time I hear it, I'm like, "I know the answer, like, let's talk, like,
Yeah.
let's do this."
Yeah.
Um, and it's sad, and
Mm.
it's sad that that's the case, but he's got this gaping hole, like you say, and
Yep.
he's tried to fill it with drugs. He's tried to fill it with doctor recommended treatments. He's tried to fill it with relationships. He's tried to
Money.
fill it money, being a rock star and
Yeah.
travel all over the world. He's tried to fill it with all these things,
Yeah.
and they're the biggest they've ever been right now, and this is when this song comes out. So he's already done all of these things. This isn't somebody who's just started down this road of musicianship and making music.
Mm.
They're successful. I mean, they've made it by all accounts, and they released this song, and he writes the lyrics to this song at this moment. And I just think it's interesting that it's like, "Hey, man, I know the answer." And like you say, you've got this gap and you keep filling it with stuff, but
Yep.
there's one book, and that book's got the answer.
Yeah, you
So
gotta shut that giant hole that is your window in your house, and
yeah,
then yeah, you'll be a little bit warmer inside.
yeah.
Have your heart a
Or
bit filled up.
or you could look at it this way, and you could, instead of continuing to try to fix that window by yourself, by continuing to call, you could probably call someone who knows the answer to the question.
100%, and you ask Jethro, and he'll give you great advice
Yeah,
about how to do it.
you lean into the elders, and you allow
Yeah,
them to pour into you and to pour into your life. You gotta have that community of people you trust.
yeah, it's fun. That window was open during like the 2021 storms, where it was like we got like 7, 8 inches of snow. It was
Yeah,
open during that time.
that's
No clue. We didn't know. It's whatever. There's bugs always in the window. Like, what is there always bugs in this window? It's
why
always
am I getting bit by mosquitoes every night?
so dusty in this room. It's like the pollen is always in this room. Why is that the case? Gotta look around, man. Figure it out.
Yeah.
Get some advice.
Maybe take some inventory of your life and your surroundings if you
Yeah.
find yourself in a
Mm,
not a literal window situation, but
mm,
you find yourself in mental, psychological one. Maybe take a gander around your life and see where the gaps in the wall or the window might be.
that's good. That's really
Start
good.
start to putty up. Speaking of puttying up,
Mm,
Pointman, sad day today.
yeah.
Found out that we weren't gonna get to meet tonight.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, because of the snow.
Mm,
But as you so eloquently put in our opening prayer for this podcast this evening, all things work for the good of those who love him and are called according to his purpose. So there's a reason we're waiting a week.
yes.
Kickstart Point Man. We don't know what it is, but we're doing it, and it's gonna
Yeah.
start next week. And I cannot be more excited for this. I sent you guys a text earlier when we found out we weren't going to get to meet, and it's so true. It's like, hey, this is we can look at the two ways. Like we can either be sad that we don't get to meet, or we can be excited that we have another week to
Yep.
make this night of Point Man that much better. And so I'm excited for this semester. I'm so excited to kick off with Moses.
Yep.
Moses is clearly we've kind of jumped around his story a little bit here tonight, as he is a factor in the story of Jethro, because Jethro is a factor in the story of Moses.
Right.
Um, and so we are, one short week away now from diving into Moses and
Yep.
diving into this. And I can't tell you how much I'm excited. I was looking through my notes for it this morning because I didn't know that we weren't going to get to meet. And I had to like whittle down verses. I had like 20 verses in my my message for tomorrow night. And I was like, I can't just sit here as much as I want to. Like, you can just read the story of Moses, and it's awesome and it's
Yeah.
exciting.
That's
I
true.
was like, I can't just sit here and read Moses.
Yeah. Yeah. You could take up like the whole time just reading Moses and everybody get out, and you would get something from that. Everybody would have like, okay, we're fired up, we're good to go because
Oh
of
yeah.
Moses' story himself. Um, there's a lot of spots even where like you can kind of gloss over wherever he was holding up the staff and his two buddies are sitting there helping him. Like that's a great thing for Pointman. We'll probably talk about it. Sorry, I'm doing a spoiler alert.
No, go for it. It's actually not in my message.
Oh, okay. Well, there's a spot where Moses is leading the people like, and his armies against their enemies, and God says, "As long as you can hold my staff above your head with your arms, you'll be winning." And so he's like getting tired. The battle's going all day. His two buddies come up, Aaron and not Joseph. I just read it, but it'll come to me. But his two buddies are there holding his staff up, and that's the same thing in our life. Is like we need point men in our lives to come help us because there's times in your life you're not going to be able to hold that staff above your head. You're going to need point men to come and rally, pray with you, be with you, encourage you to help you out in your life because doing it by yourself, it's not going to work. Moses knew that. He figured it out that I got to have my two buddies, my two spiritual guys with me to help me out because we're not going to win this battle by ourselves. So it's just that's so many things about Moses' life where you could get points and just be fired up because of it. So yeah, Moses.
Yeah, that's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a we actually did a series called Man on Fire.
Mm.
Um, it's been a little bit ago now. But it was about Moses. It was about the life of Moses. And that was one of the points Pastor Kendall from Cabot, actually made. He discussed the value of point man and holding your brother up, keeping the brother accountable. So true. That's not all point man's about, but it is a big part of what point man's about. And that community of men around you when you're going through hard times. We talk about in the story of Daniel. We talk about it in all of this Old Testament stories of men. One of the key factors is community. One of the key factors is that there's a group of men surrounding them who are helping them walk through these tough situations. Um, and Moses is no different, and that is definitely a part of the story for sure.
Yeah, Aaron and Joseph was the other one that was holding Joseph. I wrote down Joseph. Joshua. Golly, I cannot remember Joshua's name for some reason, but Aaron and just Joshua was his spouse. But there is one thing I wanted to say when you're talking about that verse, Romans 8:28. It's my verse of the year for what Pastor Scott was saying, like have a word for the year and then a verse for the year. My verse for the year is Romans 8:28, and I know that all things work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to His purpose for them. That is the verse. I feel like it can be used in every situation, and like I'm using it left and right these days. Like people trying to give people advice, I'm like, boom, here's this verse. Boom, here's this verse. So I really have been really diving into that verse, and it's something that I'm going to take with me not throughout this year, but for the rest of my life. But and my word is content as well. Try to be more content with what God got gives me, and doesn't not just keep chasing after every little thing. So
Content is the word of the year.
yeah,
I did not. My word of the year was learn.
okay,
Um, I did not take a. Sorry, I'm getting a video pulled up before we get
yep,
out of here tonight.
that's so good.
Um, I did not pick a verse of the year. Um, I am with learn. I'm working through a lot.
Mm,
I'm trying to study and learn a lot,
mhm,
and so I don't have a specific one. I like Romans 8:28. I think that's good.
Yep.
1 Corinthians 13:16 or 16:13, 13:16. Just lost our verse for the semester. It's late, y'all. It's late for us. We normally record podcasts at like 2 in the afternoon. It's 8 o'clock at night. So
It is.
my memory is not shot. I also worked all day.
Mhm,
But that's a verse that has stood out to me for a long time.
mhm,
And so I would say, oh, that was loud. I don't know if you heard that.
mm.
Cool. But this is terrible podcasting at the moment.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, as you're
But
getting that video pulled up, we have men that you can come and hang out with during the semester. So, like, come if you do not have somebody that's your Aaron and that's your Joshua, come and hang out with Pointman because you're gonna find those men that can be with you and hang out with you. Because I know a lot of times there's guys out there who are just by themselves and trying to get through their spiritual journey by themselves, and Appointment is a great way to come and you know boost that up and get your man, get your clan. So.
that's so good. Yeah. All right. So sorry, I'm back now. I got the video pulled up. I should have had that before we started. Word of the year was learning. Learning just because learning from people, kind of that just like we see Moses, he's allowing Jethro to speak into his life. I'm spending lots of intentional time with people who are smarter than me in certain aspects and spaces. Point Man is a big part of that. There's guys in Point Man that I lean into, and
Why you hanging out with me? I'm not.
yeah.
I'm not considered.
You don't have to be an elder. You don't have to be an elder to have valid information
Okay, cool.
and
All right, cool.
understanding. But yeah, spending that intentional time learning from people who are smart in certain aspects in certain spaces. Having a specific verse for that is tough because there isn't necessarily. Of course, all scripture is breathed out by God and is profitable for training, for teaching, for reproof and correction. Like that, if you want to just boil it down to
Mm,
like if you had to pick a verse, that's probably the one I would go with.
mm,
But generally speaking, the Bible and its essence is the book of the year. Spending a lot of intentional
mm,
time reading, studying in the Bible more so. Not that I haven't always, but I've spent a lot of time reading outside of the Bible too, um, and spending way more time focused.
mm,
Um, Replacing some of that time where I would have read something else just to put another book on the list.
mm,
Taking that time to read the Bible in general and study through it, and do studies like what we're doing and Act Like Men, which I'm ready to get kicked off. I don't know about you.
yeah.
I've been a little absent-minded the last couple episodes of the podcast because I've been so focused on the topics for the semester for the guys for the semester and working through those messages, but they're here. This is the last pod before the semester kicks off. Finally, Lord willing, and the creek don't literally rise,
Or freeze.
or freeze, keep us from the church again next week. But as we sign off, I guess for the evening, I'm gonna run. We got a little intro video for our first night of Point Man
Mm.
for Moses. I hope the audio works because it's pretty epic. But Luke, you got anything else for tonight? Thanks, man, for hopping on and for running the show on Jethro.
Heck yeah, no, I don't have anything else. I just pray that we have an awesome semester and that everybody comes out and joins us because it's going to be a awesome semester. So
It is indeed. All right, well, here you go. We're kicking off our next semester of Point Man with
what's up, Point Man? Welcome to another night, semester of the Point Man. Tonight we are talking about men of the Old Testament. In particular, we are talking Moses.